Hey gang, welcome to week 3. I hope you enjoyed the focus on solution focused last week. This week we're going to jump into Alfred Adler and some of the strategies that he uses or he used and his students, theorists that follow his design, use in therapy. Please read chapters 6 and 7 in your book. And with that, let's just jump in and talk about this, maybe. So you'll want to read through this lecture, watch this video. I had some supplementary material, but I'm going to just leave it here. And I might add some more, but it's not. These are pretty self-explanatory, and you can find a lot of these on the internet, some of these ideas. They're pretty well, some of these techniques are pretty well worn, pretty well established. I want you to work through conducting and recording and submitting your first assignment this week. Rather than do a discussion board, I don't want to take your time away because it will be time consuming when you sit down and you type out your transcription, you reflect on it thoroughly, and you upload it. So please take some time to reach out amongst yourselves and get your assignment done because this is one of your primary learning vehicles for the class. So let's go ahead and think about the underlying assumptions for Adlerian. If you do want to incorporate Adler and one of these techniques into your recording, be my guest. That's what this is for. This is for you to experiment and practice around. If you remember from psychological theories class, Alfred Adler was a student of Freud and took a lot of Freud's ideas forward, ideas about the unconscious, about conflict. However, Adler's ideas about conflict did not involve a psychosexual conflict. His was more concerned with feelings of inferiority. In other words, Adler is responsible for the inferiority complex that we've come to know in psychology and the concept regarding complexes, which is some internal unconscious struggle. And so the point of Adler's therapy, when Adler is working with people, is to help resolve and work through this inferiority or feelings of alienation from others. Very, very socially oriented theory. Adler also started to look at birth order in a lot of detail. Really, birth order and our focus on how different orders of birth affect our personality and our development, that can be attributed to Adler, the very first, although there are other theories that do take a look at that, particularly in family therapy. Adler was on the cutting edge of kind of think about, okay, yeah, that first child is usually very very responsible, taking care of business. The youngest child is some of the baby and gets coddled. And so the birth position really also influenced what Adler perceived to be our underlying source of dysfunction, which is this, this complex, this inferiority complex, that we're not as good as others, that we compare ourselves and we're just not as good. And that can also manifest in a superiority complex where people, think of maybe narcissistic personality, where people believe they are better than others and therefore create situations of imbalance and create feelings of inferiority in others. And so Adler's real mission in therapy was to kind of balance these two ideas, which was to help people that are feeling more inferior to feel more equal and worthy, and people who are exerting, this superiority, feelings of superiority on others, to kind of bring them down a step and more equality in relationships. So you see Adler in active parenting. If you ever pick up an active parenting curriculum, you see a lot of Adler's ideas and theories in place there. You also, there's a PrEP program, which I was actually trained in Oklahoma, supposed to help prevent separation and divorce. They also rely heavily on ideas from Adler. In fact, I think I still have, I do, the speaker listener technique. And so this is actually taken from Adler's ideas with iMessages, because you learn iMessages. You also learn a little bit of how to counsel people with the speaker listener technique. So it's kind of interesting to see all of these different theories kind of borrow from one another. Let's jump into that. So iMessages, this is in chapter 6. So if you want a more detailed, and I would do read the chapters, you can read through my quick description of it here. It's basically just learning to communicate with I rather than you. So when you get in these negative feedback loops with others, with social relationships with children, with significant partners, significant others, with parents, you never listen to me. You never take out the trash. You never help with the housework. You're always flying off the handle. And so what happens when we hear you? Automatically there's this affront to us, and it's like, okay, I'm going to be defensive, and now there's going to be a fight. So there's a really quick, easy way to structurally change a conversation where people are more apt to listen to each other. Using I feel disrespected when you don't listen to me, telling you to pick up your clothes because it seems like there are other things that are more important to you. It seems like, and so you take the edge off of what may have been considered like an aggressive, you did this. I feel takes it more down to an empathetic, where that person is more likely to be empathetic to you discussing. And so there's a very structured way of teaching this. This is very educational, but you also want to practice this. You don't want to just let the client go and learn without practicing. So you as a counselor would role play this. There's also a role play exercise in chapter 7. It's called the as if technique. And so this reminds me a little bit in form of the miracle question, although you actually act out. A lot of Adlerian techniques are social in their ideas and in their end goal and intervention. And so this is an as if technique, helps a person work through a feeling of inferiority by acting as if they were equal, so to speak. Acting as if there wasn't this differentiation in power or social stature. And so you're welcome to read through chapter 7 and also my comments. Some weaknesses on Adler. Actually, the strengths, this is pretty easily applied, and there's not a lot of brain surgery, necessarily in some of these basic techniques. That said, conversely, Adler really is assuming that you can work through a deeper self-awareness and introspection from your client. If you have clients who are limited cognitively or maybe not old enough to develop a real strong self-concept, a lot of these ideas and the structure and philosophical orientation of Adler is over here, and it needs to be somewhere that meets the clients. That'd be my biggest criticism. There are also, he also looks at dreams quite a bit and dream interpretation, and that lacks empirical support. Also, the paradoxical interventions, I didn't have you read that, but this is like somebody who's smoking, okay, let's just have them smoke as much as they want all day long. That's supposed to be like, like the kid who tried to smoke the cigar, so you have them smoke the whole cigar and they throw up. So there is limited scientific evidence that that's effective. A lot of these paradoxical interventions. I will say there's a little difference in reactive attachment disorder with some of these paradoxical interventions. I've seen some evidence that in some respects paradoxical interventions work in that regard, but they if you think about, somebody, okay, go out and smoke 4 packs of cigarettes today because you want them to stop smoking. There's some hazard. There's some sometimes these paradoxical intervention can cause harm. So obviously consider that. That's our first ethic, is do no harm. And also, I will say there's limited scientific data supporting efficacy. So your assignment again this week is just to jump in out there and do your recording and upload all the things that go along with it. So I look forward to seeing your first works, and good luck. Take care.